Arise and start, because our fortune awaits the bold. Welcome to Arise and Start on Unizik 94, the One FM. My name is Echo. Good to have you guys on the show this morning. I don't know why I'm excited today. Maybe it's the last Tuesday of the month of April. I look at April. I don't know what's going on. But anyways, we're back with a regular favorite show on radio, Arise and Start. It comes your way every Tuesday mornings by 8:30 right here on Unizik 94, the One FM. And I'll call it a Tuesday tonic. More like when they say you have to take this thing once a day or 3 times a day. Every Tuesday you take Arise and Start prescription so that you can get geared for the rest of the week. And thankfully it's coming a day after resumption of the working week, so all kind of very fresh. Yes. We're still on track. Dr. Ogochukwu Federer is right here in the studios. Doc, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the program as always.
Good morning, my listeners.
So, Doc,
those of us joining on Facebook, good morning.
Yeah, if you're on Facebook, hi, hello. Drop a comment on Facebook, say hi, maybe like or whatever. Just tell us that you're there watching.
Yeah.
Doc, you were on a series and you wrapped it up last Tuesday, if I'm correct, or you did a summary of the series. I don't know, but
so yeah, we did a summary of the series 2 Tuesdays away.
Yeah.
And then last Tuesday we opened something we could call the second chapter.
Okay, of the
series. So
okay.
we talked about strategy, how to win in your business environment and all that. So, but let me just do a recap of so that our viewers can easily connect. So we started the part 1 series on vision. We talked about how vision gives direction to your business, and then we talked about how mission gives purpose to your business, and then we talked about how goals give you targets and milestones you need to achieve.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we ended that chapter with objectives as the tools that drive you to execute. So last week we started with strategy, which is what we'll call a decisive action to win in business. What strategies like the plans, the actionable plans you have to win, to be profitable in your business. Yeah. So, but today we're going to be talking about something very, very important. And in fact, it's a thing that makes a difference between doing business and actually being profitable. Yeah, we're going to
the difference between doing business and being profitable. So you can actually be doing business and you're lost.
And you're lost, exactly. Yeah, you can actually be doing business and you're lost. So we're going to be talking about business model.
Okay.
So business model is basically how your business makes money.
Okay.
It's basically how your business makes money. So, and I usually say that any business that is not profitable or doesn't make money is either a charity organization or a hobby for the owner. Because what makes a business is that it makes money.
It makes money,
yeah. Yeah, and it is a business model that turns your ideas into incomes and revenues, So, what exactly is business model? Business model talks about how your company provides value, and how it captures customers, and how those customers pay for that value.
Okay.
Yeah.
How it provides value, captures customers, and how they pay for the value.
Exactly. That's business model.
Okay.
So now, in that order, business model asks 3 questions.
Okay.
So the first question is, what solution am I bringing to the table? What value am I bringing to the table? Because if you're not bringing any value to the table, then you're not in business.
Okay.
So business is about solving problems, right? So then the second question is, who is going to pay for the value I'm bringing to the table? Who's going to pay for the solutions? So of course you know that sometimes the beneficiary of a solution might not be the person that pays for it. So for example, you have the Pampers, the baby industry, where they produce baby lotions and all that. Of course, you know the babies, the products are for babies, but the people that pay for it are adults,
Yes.
parents and all
Parents,
that.
of
Exactly.
course.
So, but in business model, we're more interested on who is going to pay than the beneficiary.
Okay.
But sometimes beneficiaries are also people that
People
pay.
that pay too, yeah.
Then the last question is how is the person going to pay? How are you going to collect the money?
Okay.
And it's not like going to steal, from them. You understand? How do you get them to voluntarily
They
pay
pay the money.
the money? Exactly. So that's what business.
So now let me
model-
understand. They're paying for that value now. That value you're providing.
You're providing
That's
exactly.
what they're paying for.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah. So now, when you're able to answer these questions, you would have ended up formulating a business model for
Okay.
your business.
business. Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
So, and let me give a little example. So, I was interacting with a business owner, actually a teller, and the guy is very skillful. Good designs and all that. But then, every month he ends up in loss, right? He doesn't make a lot of money, you understand? So when I asked him questions, I found out that his weakness is the business model, right? So a typical month for a tailor is someone gets in materials for him or her to sew, and then sometimes he sews all the material with NEPA light.
Okay.
Then sometimes there's no supply from NEPA, and then he sews it with generators. And then sometimes you might be sewing with generator and they bring light. Then hybrid, kind of, you understand. So, but I found out that the tailor doesn't track this costing, right? So he doesn't even know what it will cost him. Assuming he's doing a job now, and then he's using both NEPA and generator. He doesn't know the cost implication and all that, all that, So, and every now and then he gives discounts without knowing.
That's where he gets it wrong now.
So without knowing,
if he's on the meta PCA
what did we say go first before discount, that kind of stuff, So, but after talking with him, we structured out his costing and all that. We're going to talk about this costing sometime in the future. Yeah. So he structured it out and all that, and it was clear to him that before you give someone a discount, it's not something you come up with. You should know the benchmark of discount you give, and you should also know what should trigger it. Maybe how many clothes the person is bringing, whether he's a new customer or an old customer and all that. Then you should be able to track your costing so that whatever price you give the customer, whether you're using Geno and NEPA or only NEPA,
profit.
you still have your profit. You understand? Yeah. So all these things formulates what you call or how you come about your business model. Business model is the difference between a company that profits and a company that doesn't profit.
Okay, what I want to ask is, a lot of Nigerians are entrepreneurs. A lot of people, because of course that in this economy now you have to diversify.
Yeah.
I go every week. But then the question is, do you think that people actually use this business model in their businesses? Because you see that a lot of businesses, when they start, before you know it, they fold it up. Or maybe they do one, they feel like it's not working, they do another one. So do you think it's people actually know about it, and not just knowing, do they actually apply them in their day-to-day business activities?
Okay, so I can tell you that a lot of people don't know about this. In fact, that's one of the inspirations why we started this program, right? And I've also learned it from the hard way. So, so not just that I have a doctorate degree in business administration. I'm actually an entrepreneur, and I learned it the hard way. So, in answering your questions, a lot of people don't know about business model and how to apply it. But there are businesses in Nigeria that are doing very well and that have applied it. Let's take, for example, Jumia. Now, you see Jumia, if you look closely, Jumia, the products that Jumia deliver to you, they don't make any of them, right? So their business model is anchored, the value they create is anchored on bringing buyers and sellers together. Right? Now, and once they bring buyers and sellers together, they make money. How do they make money? That's the question. They make money from commissions. So the sellers sell and they make money from commissions from the sellers. They also make money from advertising because buyers and sellers are on the platform. That's
So you can
traffic.
put your stuff,
You can
that's
advertise.
traffic.
Exactly. Then also they make money from delivery. So most of the core delivery, logistics in delivering, they do it. But though sometimes what we see is the end deliverer, which could be an outsourced company. But the core logistics around delivering the product that you pay for, they make money from that, right? So that Juba is a good example of a Nigerian business that have a clear business model and how to make profits, and they are actually using it and making profit out. Then another example is MTN. Now, if you check the value that MTN brings to the marketplace is connecting people, right? So how do they make money from connecting people? So they connect people through voice calls, through SMS, through data they use over the internet, right? And they make money off that. Then another way they make money is through financial transactions. Because they've connected people together, right? They're able to provide a platform that allows people pay, make transactions, and they make money from that. So you find out they have well-defined, recurring income business model. Because one thing is having a business model that attracts customers, but another thing is having a business model that retains customers, because you make more money when you retain customers. So your business model should be such that it's able to retain customers, right? Because once your business the business you're doing is unable to retain customers, you find out you'll be spending a lot of money in chasing around new customers. So, but once you implant the strategy in your business model that allows you to retain customers, you find out that you spend less on marketing, and within time the cost of production will go lower than the revenue you make, and that's profitability.
That's profitability for you. We'll go for a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk all about business models. I'm sure that Doc still has a lot to tell us about business models and how we can apply them in our own business. Because I wanted to use you're talking about those other companies, but I want us to use like the everyday Nigerian company. Like when you want a provision store,
Okay.
you get to use business model in a store.
All right.
So, but then we'll talk about that after this short break. Please don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the show, Arise and Start, because fortune awaits the bold. If you are watching us live on Facebook, thank you for being there. We appreciate you. You can drop your comments, questions, and of course, Doc is always capable, ever ready to answer your questions. Okay, Doc, I asked a question before we went on a break. For somebody who is running, because I mean, if you look around you, you see that provision stores everywhere, like almost every step you take is a provision store.
Exactly.
Because nobody gave in, nobody, no matter how bad the economy is, person must work, one must job. So for somebody who's listening to us right now, because I'm sure a lot of them are listening to us, and it's maybe they've been experiencing loss in their business. That is aside the issue of family and friends, and well wishes nearly wash up. That's not. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about somebody who is genuinely, being able to take that off the table.
Okay.
But then it's working, really hard to ensure. But then at the end of the day, I didn't want to turn over as much as it ought to be. So how does one apply the business model, in that situation?
Okay, so in answering your question, first of all, any person doing business should have a bookkeeping. Bookkeeping.
Okay, bookkeeping. Okay.
Yeah, so where he keeps records of the products that he or she bought.
Which one's better? Is it doing it on your phone or your tab or your book?
You start with you start with anyone that is okay. You can start with a book or you can start with a phone. but just have a backup. You can start with a phone and then back up with a book, just in case if something happens to your phone. Exactly. Yeah. So, and if you look around, most businesses do the automated type, where when you buy something, they input it on the system and then generate a receipt for you and all that. But for those that have money, they can go that way. Then for people starting that can't afford that, they can track, the products they have, the revenue they generate, or the pricing or they sell each product. So you should have the price you sell for each product. And you should have the benchmark of discount you can give for each product.
Okay.
You also have a record of the number of products and the types of products you've sold in a day. You also, so when you have that, you also have a record of maybe the things you need to resupply. So bookkeeping is, I think we also need to talk about it in the next.
Does it mean that you do this every day?
Yeah, so for me, for my business, okay, let me use my personal accounting, right? So at the end of every day, before my devotion and before I sleep, I go through all my expenses, my personal expenses. I track them. So one thing with money is that if you don't track money, you won't know how much you're spending, and you will not know what to curtail. You won't know what to cut on, and what to invest in. So and
on a lighter note, Doc, that economy and I wasn't money. I brought money got say cut all the time. The economy will help you cut it.
Yeah,
what understand? Go ahead.
Yeah, the economy will help you cut it. But I'm saying all this to make a very simple statement. Developing a business model starts from tracking your cost, because if you can't track your cost, then you will not be able to control what leaves your bank account. You won't be able to control what leaves your treasury. You understand? And you will also not be able to know what comes in, because the moment you're able to track what leaves your business in terms of money and track what enters in, then you will know whether you're using the right pricing, whether your pricing is low.
Okay.
So for example, the cost of this is let's say 50,000 naira, and then the cost of delivering the goods, getting it from where you're or producing it and everything is about let's say 48,000 naira and all that. Then once you have that record and then check what your competitors are doing, you'll be able to know whether 2,000 naira profit is ideal, right? So one of the mistakes that people make in developing business model is low pricing. So, but you can't know if you're pricing your goods low if you're not tracking the costing, and then you're not tracking how much you make. So once you're able to settle that, that's number one. Then secondly, in business model, you should know one thing, that not everyone that likes your product can buy it, and you should know your market, right? So every business has its own market. You should be able to know the kind of people that your goods are targeted on. If you're bringing huge value to the table, a lot of people like Lamborghini, not a lot of people can buy it. You understand? A lot of people like Rolls-Royce, not a lot of people can buy it. So Rolls-Royce marketing department, don't waste your time coming to advertise Rolls-Royce to people like you and me. So usually where you see them advertise Rolls-Royce is private hangars in airports, or maybe when if an airplane manufacturer is launching a new model of airplane, you see them advertising there, because their target market is the 1% in the world that controls the bulk of the wealth of the world. You understand? So you should be able to know your market. Maybe what your problem is that you're targeting the wrong people that like your product but they don't have the money to pay. Why not look for people that like the product and have the money to pay, so that you save yourself the stress, right? Then another thing with business model, one of the mistakes that people make in business model is reoccurring. So a business model is not you can't call what you have a business model if it doesn't produce reoccurring revenue. Now, if you check, the word model has the same root word as mold. So if you take, for example, block industries, they have a mold that they use in molding blocks.
Yes.
And throughout the lifetime or life cycle of a mold, it can produce hundreds of thousands of blocks. When you're producing it with one mold, that is what a model is. Your business model should be able to retain your customers, and so that you can make more money over time from them. That is what makes the model, like a prototype,
Then finally, because our time is almost
okay. So
coming to an
then,
end.
lastly, ignoring cost structure. So I just talked about it earlier on. So tracking your cost so that you give cost structure to whatever you're doing. I would like to say that your business might be a very good business. Your ideas might be the best, but without a business model, you will not be able to translate it into income.
All right, your ideas might be the best, but if you don't have a business model, you're not going to make it into income. Thank you, Doc. Our time is up. We have to go, and please join us next week, Tuesday, 8:30. I'm sure that Doc is going to continue with the business model, because this is really, really interesting. I think this is where a lot of us are actually missing it.
Yeah.
If we have a proper guided business model, I'm sure that we'll be able to make profit of our business. And you talked about bookkeeping. That's also another important thing.
Yeah, we're going to talk about
where
it.
you write down everything and ensure that you check, maybe your checks and balance. And that's why you even know if you're at a loss, if your sales girl or sales boy is stealing from you. So
exactly.
there's no way you know if you don't put all these things
Down.
down in the record. All right, we'll see you on the other side, of course, at 9. The Igbo time out. I'm sure that Maka Mother with our divas are ready to thrill you on a Tuesday morning. Good morning, and bye for now.
Yeah, and lastly,
Okay, go ahead.
Innovation creates value, but business model captures value.
Wow.
So until we see you next time, arise and start, because
Fortune
fortune awaits the bold.
I'm going to ring a bell for you. Anytime you put something like that, I call the bell. Anyways, do stay on this radio. Good morning.